Hey, this is Mike from the Run Testers. This is the Asics Novablast 5 and this is the Nike Vomero 18. Now, two very accomplished new daily trainer shoes. Now, if you're looking at these two shoes and trying to decide which one is the best shoe or maybe the best fit for you, we're going to answer that question in this video. First, we'll take you through the key stats and key differences between the two shoes, get you into our initial run thoughts, and then let you know whether you should go for the Asics Novablast 5 or the Nike Vomero 18. So let's run you through those key details and differences with the Nike Vomero 18 and the Asics Novablast 5. Let's start with price, and the Vomero 18 sits at £135 or $150, while the Novablast 5 costs the same £135 and is $140 in the US. So they're the same in the UK, and the Novablast is cheaper stateside. Weight-wise, the Vomero 18 is the heavier of the two shoes and features a 10mm drop compared to the 8mm drop on the Novablast 5. At the upper, the Vomero 18 has an engineered mesh one with a more padded tongue, while the Novablast 5 has a jacquard mesh one and features a gusseted style tongue. Both offer similar levels of padding at the heel collar. The Novablast uses FF Blast Max foam to provide comfort and bounce and sits on top of an AHA low hardness outsole. The Vomero uses Zoom X and React X foams and features an outsole that's designed to contribute to providing a smooth overall ride.
Fit then, and I ran a UK 8.5, which is my regular size in the Nike shoe and the Asics shoe. I really like the fit of the Vomero 18. It's all about plush comfort with a roomy enough toe box. Padded heel collars hold well, no rubbing, just soft comfort. These big plush padded tongues really sit nice, offer plushness on those long runs, help you lock the laces down without any unwanted pressure. The uppers have a really nice amount of flex. They are secure across the toe knuckles without being tight, and the uppers really flex with your feet. So I had no problems getting good lockdown and good comfort from the Vomero 18. In the Asics, I found the fit secure but really roomy with a decent amount of wiggle room in the toe box as well. Again, I find there's good hold across the midfoot. You've got a flatter tongue here, but it wraps really nicely, holds down well. I've got a good secure kind of heel as well. And unless you like your shoes really snug, I think I would recommend going true to size in both of these shoes. I really like the fact they're roomy up top. Give you plenty of room to flex, particularly if you want to go use these shoes for that longer haul mileage.
So in terms of fit, I've got both in a UK size 8. That's my typical running shoe size. I would say, based on my experience, these are true to size fitting shoes, and I think they will be for most people. I think the key differences that I would take away from my experience is when you look at the space up front of the toe boxes, I think with the Novablast 5, maybe getting a little bit more room in the same size shoes. I think particularly the front and the sides of my toes, that's where I really noticed it. I think the Vomero 18 sits a little bit closer, but it hasn't caused any issues in terms of my runs. Now, you get further back in these shoes, the midfoot areas feel very similar, relatively broad, I think very accommodating as well, and tells you that these are going to be generally very accommodating shoes to wear. Maybe the Novablast 5 slightly more, but there's not a huge amount in it. With the laces, nothing too kind of unfussy there. I think, you know, they play it pretty safe on that front. The tongues, the Nike has got the significantly more padded tongue. If you like that inner tongue, then that's what you're going to get on the Vomero 18. The Novablast 5 one is a little bit skinnier and, you know, hasn't moved around for me, but, you know, and hasn't caused any issues either. But if you like a little bit more padding, then a Nike shoe is going to give you that. The padding in the heel collar, again, very similar, it kind of raises in a similar kind of fashion. I think maybe the padding on the Vomero 18 feels more noticeable and more prominent when you're out running in it, just maybe because it sits a little bit closer, but at the actual level of padding isn't very different between the two shoes. So I think the key takeaways for me would be maybe getting a touch more space in the same size on the Novablast 5. You're getting a more padded tongue on the Nike Vomero 18, and you just feel that heel padding around the heel collar a little bit more on the Vomero 18 as well.
Now, in testing, I've run well north of 50 miles in the Asics Novablast 5. I've done north of 30 miles in the Nike Vomero 18. I've done a big mix of miles. I've done some longer runs up to 90 minutes. I've done a solo marathon test in the Novablast 5. That'll be on the channel. I've done some shorter, faster efforts in both shoes, including 5Ks around marathon pace. All of that's been on the road, but I have thrown in the odd river path as well to test the stability of the shoe and a bit of the durability. Now, from all of that, I would say that these are two very capable daily trainers. They're both bringing big stacks, lots of cushion. I really like what I've seen from the Vomero 18, from the giant 46mm stack of foam to the big soft padded heel collars and tongues. There's everything about this Vomero 18 screams soft plush comfort, but the interesting thing I think is that it's not overbaked. And the dual foam setup makes for a reliable, stable, cushioned ride that actually has a little bit of pop. All that extra padding in the uppers and the big stack makes it a heavier shoe. That's kind of well documented. But I think you're trading weight for guaranteed comfort. And I actually think the shoe runs lighter on the foot than it really looks from the numbers on the scale. Part of that is that it's quite narrow and precise compared to some of the bigger stack shoes. For a max stack shoe, I think it almost doesn't feel like a max stack shoe. It's just not big and cumbersome, I wouldn't say. Now, the Novablast 5 offers a really nice smooth ride that responds well on toe off. It feels springy and controlled. When you're feeling good, running with good form and pushing the pace, the Novablast 5, it feels kind of energetic, but it's also cushioned enough to accommodate things when you kind of drop to those slower paces or you're back further on your heels, or if you're running on heavier legs. Though sometimes on those heavier legs, I think it can feel a bit soggy. I've had slow runs or runs where I felt a bit tired, where the softness and that kind of slower paced form further back makes it feel a little bit like the shoe is working against you somewhat. But then I've had runs where I'm full of energy, running in good form and really working off the forefoot, and they feel kind of nice and energetic, smooth, all of those things that you would look for in a good daily training when you're picking up the pace a bit. Now, one of the major differences here I think I've talked about is kind of the heft. So I'm not talking about the weight, because the Novablast is lighter, but it's got a wider platform. The Vomero, more compact platform, I think offsets some of that weight. So for me, you get a ride between these shoes that's not a million miles apart in terms of the overall sort of feelings of energy and lightness on the foot. But to tease out the difference in a more detailed way, I also did a side-by-side mile, and here's what I found. So I've just done a side-by-side mile. I've got the Novablast 5 on the left foot. I've got the Nike Vomero 18 on the right foot. This is another one of those where before I put them on, I thought these were going to feel markedly different in terms of the ride underfoot, and then when you put them on, it's surprising how close they are in terms of the ride. There are some big differences, or some significant differences I should say. I think the Novablast 5 gets to its energy with a bit more bounce, there's a bit more spring, there's a bit more compression in the foam and a bit more return. I think the Vomero gets there, it's soft and it does spring back, but it's got a bit more rockering that kind of takes effect. You do notice the fact that the Novablast 5 is slightly lighter weight, but it's wider in the platform, which means that the precision of the Vomero 18, I think, offsets some of that weight a little bit. So it doesn't feel really, I don't find, any less agile, or really, to me, any less energetic overall. Maybe for the lightness, the Novablast will be better at the faster paces than the Vomero 18 for some people. The other thing you'll notice is the Novablast 5 is the sort of more voluminous in terms of the overall fit. There's a bit more room in the toe box. It feels a bit bigger on the foot than the Vomero 18. So if you like it nice and roomy, maybe the Novablast 5 is going to be for you. But actually, I expected there to be a whole lot more difference between these shoes. I thought the Novablast 5 would feel so much lighter and so much sprightlier than the Vomero 18, because the Vomero 18 is heavier. But I think Nike's done a good job here of making a shoe that's max stacked, a little bit heavier, but doesn't quite run like it.
So in terms of my running time with these two shoes, I've done 50k in both now. This is the first time I'm running a Vomero shoe. I've run in various different versions of the Novablast, so I know this shoe well. So I'll start with the Vomero, which is the new of the two shoes in terms of launches. Now, if we look at the stats, particularly the stack height, this is a shoe that's very much varying into that kind of max cushion, kind of max stack kind of shoe territory. That does mean that it is the heavier of the two shoes, though I do think it handles its weight pretty well. I never felt like a kind of clunky, heavy shoe to run in, but it definitely is heavier than the Novablast 5. When you look at the midsole makeup, it's a dual density setup. You've got Zoom X here, which we know from other Nike shoes. It gives you that kind of bouncy, lively feeling. And then you've got React X, which we've seen in a couple of other Nike shoes as well. And that sits below that Zoom X foam. You can see where it sits from looking at the back of the shoe. Now, what I think that React X foam does, and its presence there with the Zoom X foam, it's kind of tamed down some of the wildness from Zoom X, particularly what we've seen in something like the Invincible, and ensure that this is a more stable shoe in comparison. I think that's also delivered from the fact that this is quite a broad shoe. You can kind of just see from the forefoot here, and it does open up pretty much at the heel as well too. That when you spread that foam here and that kind of bigger stack of foam, it does create a very stable feel. And I think what that React X foam particularly offers a bit more protection over those longer runs. And again, when maybe that kind of wilder feeling Zoom X foam on its own maybe might cause a bit more issues when you start to tire, I think it ensures that you still get that kind of bounce, that kind of nice rebound from the Zoom X foam. You get a nice rocket in this shoe as well too. but I just think it makes things feel a bit more controlled and a bit more stable. It's quite a smooth feeling shoe as well too, which I've really liked, and it's just been a very good shoe to put on and get out in and run. I think particularly easy runs, particularly up to kind of moderate pace runs, up tempo, I think, or kind of tempo style runs, I think it can just about handle that, but I think the weight kind of holds against it. I think there'll be other shoes in Nike's range which would handle that up tempo running a bit better. We get to the Novablast 5. Now this is, as I said, the lighter of the two shoes, and you do notice that it is lighter than the Vomero 18. This has a single kind of foam or single cushioning kind of midsole setup. It's the FF Blast Max here that we're getting, which is kind of new to the Novablast range. Now what that does is create something that's a bit softer. You definitely sink in a little bit more than you do in the Vomero's kind of midsole. You're still getting something that's pretty stable. Again, like the Nike shoe, it's a pretty kind of broad base that you're getting that foam spread across. It's pretty kind of smooth, I think, as well in terms of that ride. I think what I found is when, particularly I've wanted to run longer in this shoe, it feels very comfortable to do that. That softer feel of that midsole, while might in some instances create something that's probably a bit more unstable, because it is on that wider base, make sure that it's spread across a nice base and you get that comfort and protection, that softer feel that some people might prefer. And I think what that does is create something that works very well for easy runs. Again, I think it can work for moderate pace runs as well. I do think that maybe if you like something that feels a little bit more pronounced in terms of that bounce, the Vomero 18 at that moderate pace just feels a little bit nicer. From an outsole point of view, I mean, there's good amount of rubber in both of these shoes. There's a bit more on the lateral areas on the Novablast shoe, and there's still exposed areas on both. I think, if you want to do lighter trails or go and running in your parks, then both are going to be absolutely fine. I think the Vomero 18 is probably going to give you a little bit more on that front, and it's probably going to not get beaten up as quickly if you're going slightly off-road in this shoe. But from roads and pavements, it's been absolutely fine. I think the grip overall has been very good, and it kind of tells you you're going to get good life out of these shoes, and they're going to be well suited for, regular daily mileage. So I've had a good experience with both. I do think they work for similar types of runs. I do think the experience and what you're getting in the midsoles will dictate which shoe is going to be the best fit for you. Which one I pick and which one I think you should pick, I'll get into that next.
Verdict then, and I find this one a little bit tricky. I like both of these shoes. I find they're both very capable, big cushioned workhorse daily trainers that get a lot right. They're shoes that you'd likely use for the same kinds of runs. I'd say anything up to marathon pace, basically these will cater for. But for me, the distinction breaks down like this. If you're looking for a shoe that offers enough protection for slow miles, but has slightly more capacity at the faster paces, say up to your marathon pace, I think the lighter, marginally livelier Novablast is probably the shoe to go for. If you want a shoe that maxes out on comfort, particularly at the slower end of things, cruises really nicely, but can also cope with the occasional up-tempo run and isn't far off the Novablast in that sense, I think the Nike Vomero 18 is the way to go. I think there's margins here between the two. It's not a huge discrepancy overall. Now, if I were choosing a utility training shoe as a casual runner, occasional 5K, that kind of thing, I'd probably go Vomero 18. If I'm choosing a shoe that looks good and I can get away with wearing with jeans, I think the styling of the Vomero works better as well. However, for pure running and more mixed pace training, I think the Novablast 5 probably just about shades it on that versatility. It's a teeny bit livelier, a bit lighter. I think that's how most people are going to enjoy it more. However, the shoe that I keep going back to at the moment during a lot of my marathon training is the Vomero 18. Just really kind of suits the mileage that I've been logging. Easy stuff, head up, regular runs on a daily basis. When I want to go faster, I tend to move to a much speedier training shoe than either of these two, like a Mac X2 or Saucony Endorphin Speed or something of that ilk. So I personally would get more miles from the Vomero 18. But honestly, I don't think you can go wrong with either of these for a big chunk of your everyday mileage. They're both really good, and I think actually priced pretty keenly.
So my take on whether you should go for the Asics Novablast 5 or the Nike Vomero 18. Now, I do think these are two of the best new daily trainers that you can buy in 2025. And if you're looking for a daily trainer that really prioritises comfort for that daily mileage, but also for your longer runs where you're not running at your fastest and hardest, then these are absolutely two shoes that can do that. On top of the comfort side of things, they're very well protective over those longer runs. I think they're very stable, very controlled to run in. And also I think from a ride point of view, they are smooth, but also give you enough in that kind of experience to make these want to be shoes you're going to want to spend time in over extended periods. Now, if it was my money and I had to buy one, I would be going for the Vomero 18. I think given the fact that this is the shoe that I reach for most post my kind of multi-tester or, you know, our multi-tester reviews of these shoes, that, you know, that's the biggest indicator of how I feel about these shoes. As I said, I do think they work for the same types of runs, but I think I slightly prefer the feel of the midsole on the Vomero 18. It's not as soft, and I think for those moderate pace runs particularly, I prefer that feeling compared to the softer feel of the Novablast 5. I think if you like a softer feeling shoe in general, but it can still handle those kind of same types of runs, the easy up to moderate pace, shorter daily runs and longer runs in your kind of marathon training cycle, absolutely this is a shoe can do it. I just think that for me personally, I prefer doing that same type of running in the Vomero 18 overall. Okay, so there you have it. That is our multi-tester take on how the Asics Novablast 5 compares to the Nike Vomero 18. Now, if you've got any questions about this video, or you want to see any other shoes compared to either this shoe or this shoe, do let us know in the comments. As always, like and subscribe, hit that little bell to find out about our latest videos, and yeah, we'll see you for the next Run Testers video.